Everyone in the room was laughing. The head instructor pointed at the cleaning lady with her mop and said, "Let's see what you've got." She stood there in her bleach-stained sweatpants, invisible like she'd been for 5 years. Everyone expected her to walk away, embarrassed. But when she set down that mop and took her stance, two instructors in the back suddenly sat up straight, because they recognized something impossible. What happened next made a room full of martial artists realize they'd been walking past a legend every single day. This is the story of Maria, and I promise you, nothing is what it seems. The alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning, just like it did every morning. Maria's hand reached out in the darkness and silenced it before the second beep. She'd learned long ago how to wake up without disturbing anyone, how to move through the world without making a sound. In the tiny apartment she shared with her son Lucas, she dressed quietly in the pre-dawn stillness. Gray sweatpants, a faded long-sleeve shirt, even though California mornings were warm. Her left hand moved slowly as she tied her shoes, stiff, always stiff, especially in mornings. She didn't look at the scars on her wrist as she pulled the sleeve down. Some things were better left covered. By 5:15, she was pulling into the parking lot of the Fresno Valley Martial Arts Academy. The building sat dark and silent, and for a few precious minutes, it belonged only to her. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in that familiar smell, rubber mats, cleaning solution, and something else. Sweat, effort, dreams. It smelled like hope, if hope had a scent. And even though this wasn't her dream anymore, being close to it felt like something. Maria filled her bucket, added bleach, and began her routine. She'd cleaned this place for 5 years now. 5 years of arriving before sunrise and leaving after sunset. 5 years of moving like a ghost through a world that didn't see her. She mopped the floors in the main training area, working in steady practice motions. Through the large windows, she could see the first light touching the sky. Soon, the students would arrive, the instructors, the parents with their coffees and their conversations. The building would fill with noise and energy and life, and she would still be invisible. Maria paused for a moment outside the main training room, looking through the glass. She did this sometimes when no one was watching, just stood there and remembered what it felt like to be on the other side of that window, to be the one people came to watch instead of the one they looked through. Her damaged hand flexed unconsciously. Once, a long time ago, that hand had been quick as lightning. Strong. Precise. Once, she'd known exactly who she was. Now she was just the cleaning lady. "Morning, Maria." She turned to see Mr. Henderson, one of the early instructors, arriving with his gym bag. "Good morning," she replied softly, stepping aside so he could pass. He nodded and walked by, already scrolling through his phone. He was kind enough, always said hello, but he didn't really see her. None of them did. By 6:30, the academy hummed with life. Children arrived for the early class, bouncing with energy their parents clearly didn't share yet. Teenagers shuffled in for the advanced training. And then there was Lucas, her son, her whole world, 16 years old, and everything good she'd ever done made real. "Morning, Mama," he said, kissing her cheek before heading to the locker room. "Morning, Mijo. You eat?" "Yes, Mama. Same as every day." He grinned at her, that beautiful smile that made every sacrifice worth it. Maria watched him go, her heart swelling with pride she couldn't quite name. Lucas was talented, really talented. The instructors said so. He moved with a natural grace, a focus that couldn't be taught. He reminded her of someone, though she'd never told him who. Every dollar she'd saved, every extra shift she'd taken cleaning houses on weekends, every tip she'd tucked away, it all went to his training. She'd never asked for a discount, never mentioned she couldn't quite afford it. Her pride wouldn't let her. And more than that, she wanted him to earn his place here on his own merit, not because his mother scrubbed their floors. She pushed her cart to the corner and continued working, making herself small as the morning classes began. The students practiced their forms. The instructors shouted encouragement and corrections. And Maria cleaned around them all, a shadow moving through their bright world. "Nice kick, Lucas. Keep that chamber high." She glanced up at the sound of her son's name, couldn't help it. There he was, practicing a roundhouse kick, his form nearly perfect. Her heart caught. He'd gotten that from her, whether he knew it or not. That balance, that control. But she said nothing, just kept mopping. Around midday, the energy in the academy shifted. Today was special, a demonstration day. Parents packed the viewing area, excited students warmed up, and the instructors prepared their showcase. These events brought in new students, impressed the current families, and reminded everyone why the Fresno Valley Academy was considered one of the best in the region. Maria knew the routine. She'd stay in the background, keep the place spotless, be ready to clean up any mess. Invisible as always, the head instructor, Jason Miller, stood at the center of the mat. He was good-looking, charming, confident, maybe a little too confident. A former state champion who wore his achievements like a second skin. The parents loved him. The students respected him. And he knew it. "All right, everyone. Welcome to our quarterly demonstration." His voice boomed across the space. "Today you're going to see what real dedication looks like. What happens when talent meets hard work? You ready?" The crowd cheered. Lucas stood with his training group, focused and ready. Maria wheeled her cart toward the far corner, trying to stay out of the way. The demonstration began. Students breaking boards, performing complex forms, sparring with controlled precision. It was beautiful, really. She never got tired of watching. Jason worked the crowd like a performer, cracking jokes between segments, calling up students for surprise challenges. Everyone laughed. Everyone clapped. The energy was electric. And then his eyes landed on her. Maria felt it before she saw it. That shift in attention, that moment when someone actually registers your existence. But not in a good way. In the way that makes your stomach drop. Jason's face lit up with an idea. Not a kind one. "Hey," he called out, pointing at her with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "How about you? You want to try your luck?" The room erupted in laughter. Maria stood frozen, mop in hand, water still dripping onto the blue mats she'd cleaned that morning. Her heart pounded. Around her, people chuckled, some uncomfortably, some genuinely amused. She saw a few parents look away, embarrassed for her. "Come on." Jason pushed, playing to his audience now. "Let's see what the cleaning crew's got. Give her a hand, everyone." Some people clapped. Others just watched. Maria's grip tightened on the mop handle. Her left hand throbbed. It always did when she was stressed. She could feel her son's eyes on her from across the room. Lucas looked horrified, angry, ready to defend her. But something else was happening inside Maria. Something that had been asleep for 20 years was stirring awake. Jason stood there, hands on his hips, that smug grin still plastered on his face. Waiting, expecting her to laugh it off, to shuffle away, embarrassed, to stay in her place. The woman nobody saw stood at a crossroads. She could smile, shake her head, and disappear back into the shadows where she'd lived for so long, where it was safe, where no one asked questions about who she used to be. Or, Maria looked down at her hands. One scarred, one stiff, both strong. She looked at her son, whose eyes were pleading with her, though for what, she wasn't sure. And then she looked at Jason Miller, state champion, master of this dojo, man who'd never had to hide who he was. Slowly, carefully, Maria set down her mop. The laughter began to fade. She stepped forward, and as she did, her sleeve slid back, just enough to reveal the faint scars on her wrist. Old wounds, old battles. The training room went quiet. Jason's grin faltered slightly, but he held his ground. "Okay, I'll go easy." "No need," Maria said softly. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I won't." She bowed slightly, the way she'd been taught so many years ago, the proper way, the respectful way. And then Maria Alvarez, invisible woman, janitor, single mother, took her stance. In the back of the room, two of the senior instructors suddenly sat up straighter. Their eyes widened, because they recognized something in that stance, in the way she held her body, in the quiet certainty of her positioning. This was not a woman who'd learned martial arts from watching YouTube videos. Jason threw his first punch, casual, mocking, meant for show. Maria blocked it, but the way she blocked it made the entire room hold its breath. The block wasn't just good, it was perfect. Jason felt at the moment their arms connected. The angle, the timing, the effortless precision. This wasn't luck. This wasn't beginner's courage. This was muscle memory carved, so deep it had survived 2 decades of silence. He blinked, reassessing. The crowd leaned forward. "Okay," he said, his smile tighter now. "Not bad. Let's try again." This time he didn't hold back quite as much. He threw a combination, jab, cross, hook. Fast, technical, the kind of sequence that would overwhelm most people. Maria moved like water. Block, slip, pivot. Her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Every motion was clean, economical, beautiful. She wasn't fighting him. She was dancing around him. Jason's face shifted from amusement to confusion to something harder. His ego, bruised, pushed him forward. He launched a proper attack now. No more games, no more holding back. Maria saw it coming before he fully committed. She'd faced fighters like Jason her whole life. Strong, skilled, but predictable. Men who'd never had to fight hungry, who'd never had everything to lose. He threw a high kick, showy, powerful. She ducked under it, stepped inside his guard, and swept his leg with a motion so fluid it looked like the mat had simply decided to catch him. Jason went down hard. The room erupted, not in laughter this time, but in gasps. He lay there on his back, staring up at the ceiling, the wind knocked out of him along with every assumption he'd made. Maria stood above him, calm, centered, her breathing barely elevated. She extended her hand. For a moment, Jason just looked at it. Then, slowly, he took it. She pulled him to his feet with surprising strength. He bowed deeply this time, genuinely. I'm sorry. That was, who are you? Before Maria could answer, before she could retreat back into her invisibility, a voice cut through the stunned silence. Wait. An elderly man pushed through the crowd. He was small, maybe 70, with silver hair and the kind of weathered face that speaks of a lifetime spent on training mats. He wore a simple jacket, but the way he carried himself commanded respect. He stared at Maria like he'd seen a ghost. "It can't be," he whispered, moving closer. His eyes scanned her face, looking for confirmation of something impossible. "Maria Rodriguez? Are you La Huracan?" The room went dead silent. Maria's face went pale. That name she buried along with everything else. I don't know what you're. It ISU. The old man's voice cracked with emotion. "Master Chun, from El Paso. You trained at our sister academy when you were, my God, we all wondered what happened to you." Lucas pushed through the crowd, confusion written all over his face. "Mom? What's he talking about? Who's La Huracan?" Master Chun turned to the crowd, his voice filled with reverence. This woman you see cleaning your floors, she's not just a former fighter. 20 years ago, Maria La Huracan Rodriguez was the youngest woman to ever win Pan American Games gold in Taekwondo. She was 19 years old, and she didn't just win, she dominated. For matches, for knockouts. The room gasped. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "Wait," one of the senior instructors spoke up, his phone already out, searching. "La Huracan. I remember that name. She was, oh my God, she was ranked number 2 in the world. She was going to the Olympics." Lucas stared at his mother, his face a mixture of shock and betrayal. "Mom, the Olympics? You were going to the Olympics, and you never told me?" Maria's hands trembled. The walls she'd built for 20 years were crumbling, and she couldn't stop it. "Lucas, She wasn't just going to the Olympics. Master Chun continued, his eyes wet. She was the favorite to win gold. Every analyst said so. Every coach. She was unstoppable. And then he looked at Maria, his expression shifting from wonder to deep sadness. And then she just disappeared, right before the Olympic trials. No explanation. No goodbye. We searched for you. Everyone did. We thought maybe something terrible had happened. Something terrible did happen, Maria said softly. The room leaned in, waiting. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, they were looking at Lucas. Only Lucas, because if she was going to tear down these walls, it needed to be for him. "My coach," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "The man I married. He was the national team coach. Everyone loved him, respected him. He was charming and brilliant, and he knew exactly how to break someone without leaving marks that showed." Lucas's face crumpled. "Mama, when I got pregnant with you, I wanted to keep training. He said no, said I was being selfish, that my body was ruined anyway. When I tried to leave..." She paused, steadying herself. "He told me he'd destroy me, that he'd tell everyone I'd used performance-enhancing drugs, that he'd make sure I never worked in martial arts again, that he'd take you from me." The room was so quiet you could hear breathing. "So I made a choice," Maria continued. "I took you and I ran. I changed my name from Rodriguez to Alvarez, my mother's maiden name. I disappeared completely, because keeping you safe mattered more than any medal, more than any dream." "But why didn't you come back?" Master Chin asked gently. "After some time, when it was safe." "Because I was afraid," Maria said, simply, "afraid he'd find us. Afraid of the questions. Afraid that if I stepped back into that world, I'd lose myself again. And I couldn't. I had a son to raise. A son who needed a mother, not a ghost-chasing old glory." Jason, still standing nearby, looked sick. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. The way I spoke to you." "You saw what I let you see," Maria said. "A janitor. Nothing wrong with that. But yes, you never thought to look deeper. None of you did." Lucas moved forward and wrapped his arms around his mother. She could feel him shaking. "You gave up everything for me." "No, me, Joe." She held him tight. "I chose everything I wanted. You. But your dreams." "You are my dream," she said fiercely. "Every morning I wake up and you're alive and safe and good. That's the gold medal. That's the victory." One of the parents in the crowd spoke up, a woman with tears streaming down her face. "How long have you been cleaning here?" 5 years. 5 years, the woman repeated, "and we all just walked past you, like you were furniture." "Most people see what they expect to see," Maria said without bitterness. "Just fact." Master Chin stepped forward and bowed deeply. The full bow, the kind reserved for true masters. "Senora, I must ask, would you honor us? Would you step on a mat again? Not as a janitor, not as who you were, but as who you are." Before Maria could answer, a new voice rang out. "She absolutely will." Everyone turned to see the Academy's owner, Grandmaster Kim, standing in the doorway. He was elderly, quiet, rarely present for classes anymore, but his eyes were sharp and they were locked on Maria. "How long have you known?" Master Chin asked him. 3 years, Grandmaster Kim said, walking into the room. "I recognized her stance when I saw her watching through the window one morning, but I said nothing, because I understood what it meant to need invisibility for survival." He approached Maria and bowed. "I would be honored to have La Huracan train at my academy. Full scholarship. For you and your son. As equals, not charity." Maria's throat tightened. I'm not her anymore. I'm not that girl. No, Grandmaster Kim agreed. You're better. That girl had talent. You have wisdom earned through suffering. That girl fought for medals. You fight for survival. For love. There is no greater strength. Lucas squeezed his mother's hand. Please, Mama. Not for the past. For now. For us. Train with me. Maria looked around the room. At Jason, humbled. At Master Chun, awed. At the parents and students seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. At her son, her beautiful son, asking her to be whole again. And she thought about the girl she'd been. La Hurricane. The hurricane. Fast and fierce and fearless. That girl was gone. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be. Maybe there was room for both, the fighter and the survivor, the champion and the mother, the hurricane and the quiet strength that had weathered 20 years of storms. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The applause started small, one person, then two, then the entire room erupted. But Maria barely heard it, because for the first time in 20 years, she wasn't invisible. She was seen. That night, Maria couldn't sleep. She sat at her small kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold between her hands, and stared at the cardboard box she'd pulled from the back of her closet. She hadn't opened it in 15 years. Maybe longer. Lucas appeared in the doorway, also unable to sleep. What's that? My past, she said simply. He sat down beside her. Can I see? Together they opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings, yellowed with age, photos of a young woman mid-kick, her face fierce and focused, magazine covers in Spanish and English, and at the bottom, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, a red belt. Not just any belt. The belt from the Pan American Games. Her name embroidered in gold thread, Maria Rodriguez. Lucas picked it up with reverent hands. La Hurricane. That was her name, Maria said. Not mine. Not really. She was someone I had to leave behind. Do you miss her? Maria thought about that. Really thought about it. Sometimes. But mostly I'm grateful for who I became instead. That girl, she was talented, yes, but she was also young and hungry and didn't know yet what real strength looked like. And now I know that real strength is getting up at 4:30 in the morning when every bone in your body aches. It's working 3 jobs to pay for your son's dreams. It's surviving what should have destroyed you and choosing kindness anyway. She touched the belt gently. Metals are just metal, Mijo. You are my gold. Lucas wiped his eyes. I'm still glad you're going back. Me too, she admitted. Me too. The following Monday, Maria arrived at the academy at her usual time. But when she walked in, something was different. Grandmaster Kim was waiting for her. On the bench beside him sat a brand new GI, white and crisp and folded perfectly, and resting on top of it a black belt. I didn't earn that, Maria said immediately. Yes, you did. 20 years ago and every day since. Grandmaster Kim's voice was gentle but firm. Your rank doesn't disappear because life interrupted it. A black belt isn't just about kicks and punches. It's about character. And you, Maria Alvarez, have more character than most masters I've known. Maria touched the GI with trembling fingers. I don't know if I remember how. The body remembers what the heart never forgot, he said. Come, let's see. That first class back on the mat was the hardest thing Maria had done in years. Harder than leaving. Harder than surviving. Because this required something she'd forgotten how to do. Being visible. Every eye was on her. Lucas trained beside her, protective and proud. Jason worked with her too, humble now, asking questions, treating her like the master she'd once been. Her body ached. Her left hand cramped. She had to stop and catch her breath more than that 19-year-old girl ever did. But she kept going. And slowly, so slowly, something inside her began to heal. The other students started asking her questions, not just about technique, but about life, about surviving, about getting back up. A teenage girl approached her after class one day. "Miss Maria, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "My dad, he doesn't want me to compete. Says girls shouldn't fight. But you were the best, right?" Maria knelt down to her eye level. "I was good, but that's not why I fought. I fought because when I was on that mat, I knew exactly who I was. No one could take that from me." She paused. Well, almost no one. And even then, they couldn't take it forever. The girl's eyes filled with tears. "He hits my mom sometimes." Maria's heart stopped. She took the girl's hands. "What's your name?" "Sophia." "Sophia, listen to me. That is not your fault, and not your shame to carry. Do you understand?" Sophia nodded, tears falling now. "You tell your instructor, okay? Today. Right now. And they will help. I promise you." Maria squeezed her hands gently. "And Sophia, you keep fighting. Not because you're angry, but because you're strong. Because the world needs strong women who know how to protect themselves and others." That conversation planted a seed. 2 weeks later, Maria approached Grandmaster Kim with an idea. "I want to start a program," she said. "Free self-defense classes. For women and children escaping domestic violence. People who can't afford regular classes. People like I was." Grandmaster Kim smiled. "I was wondering when you'd ask. The space is yours. Wednesday and Saturday evenings." "I don't have money to." "Maria, you've been cleaning this academy for 5 years, often staying late without extra pay. Consider it back payment." His eyes twinkled. "Besides, this is what a dojo is supposed to be. A place of refuge. Not just for learning how to fight, but for learning how to live." The program launched a month later. Maria called it Second Stance because everyone deserves a second chance to stand strong. The first class had 3 women. The second had 7. By the 3rd month, they had to add an extra session. These students were different from the regular academy members. They came with fear in their eyes and trauma in their bodies. They flinched at sudden movements. They apologized for taking up space. Maria understood them in ways no textbook ever could. "In this class, we don't apologize for being strong," she told them on the first day. "We don't apologize for taking up space. And we definitely don't apologize for protecting ourselves. Your voice matters. Your safety matters. You matter." One of her students was a woman named Carmen, 45, whose husband had controlled every aspect of her life for 20 years. She could barely make eye contact the first day. 6 months later, Carmen earned her yellow belt, the first belt she'd ever earned in her life. And when Maria tied it around her waist, Carmen broke down sobbing. "I did something for me," she whispered. "For the first time in 20 years, I did something just for me. And you'll do it again," Maria promised. "And again, until you remember that you were always worth it." The program grew. Other instructors volunteered their time. Donations came in. Local news picked up the story, though Maria refused to be interviewed. "This isn't about me," she insisted. "It's about them." But Lucas was interviewed, and he said something that made his mother cry when she watched it later. "My mom taught me that real strength isn't about winning medals or looking tough. It's about choosing to be kind when the world was cruel to you. It's about lifting others up when you've been knocked down. My mom is the strongest person I know, and it has nothing to do with how hard she can kick." One evening, about a year after that demonstration day, Maria arrived early for her second stance class. The academy was quiet, the regular students gone for the day. She saw someone standing outside the building, looking through the window the same way she used to. An older man, maybe 60, wearing janitor's coveralls. He had a mop and bucket beside him. The new cleaning person Grandmaster Kim had hired. Maria remembered the feeling. Standing on the outside, watching a world that wasn't yours. She walked over and opened the door. "Hi, I'm Maria." The man looked startled. "Oh, I'm sorry, I was just..." Watching, Maria smiled. I used to do the same thing. You train here. I teach here. But once upon a time, I cleaned here. She paused. What's your name? Roberto. It's nice to meet you, Roberto. She noticed the way he stood, the slight boxer's stance even when at rest. Did you used to train? His face transformed with surprise and sadness. Long time ago. Boxing. Before. Well, life got complicated. It has a way of doing that. Maria opened the door wider. We have a class starting in 20 minutes. It's for people who've had complicated lives. People starting over. People finding their way back. She gestured inside. Would you like to join us? I couldn't. I'm just the what? Maria asked gently. Just a person? Just someone with a story? Just someone who deserves a second chance. Roberto's eyes filled with tears. Come on, Maria said. I'll find you some gloves. And Roberto? In this dojo, everyone gets seen. Everyone matters. No exceptions. He followed her inside, and as they walked past the window where he'd been standing, Maria caught her reflection. She saw herself, not La Huracan, not the janitor, not the victim or the survivor. Just Maria. Whole. Present. Free. That night's class was full of second chances. Carmen was there, now working on her green belt. Sophia was there, her mother beside her. They'd left Sophia's father 3 months ago and were rebuilding. A young man named David who'd aged out of foster care. An elderly woman named Rose who'd finally left her husband at 72. And Roberto, nervous but hopeful, wrapping his hands the way he'd learned 40 years ago. Maria stood before them, this collection of broken and healing and fighting hearts, and felt a fullness she'd never felt standing on a podium.